Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Um, hey gang, so excited you're here. I can't wait to hear from our friend Thom Null, who has a lot to say about his creative, no, what are your pronouns, Thom?
I'm fine with whatever. It's gonna he they. So I mean, it's clear that I have a beard. But if you want to address me as if I am a gender, I am always very comfortable with that. I'm
Okay.
warm and fuzzy when I hear they, but he doesn't bother me. I'm fully socialized male.
Okay, well, we love the warm fuzzies, so they are going to share a lot about their creativity today, and their work. Really exciting stuff, really new stuff, things we haven't talked about before. So, just some guidelines while we start. If you want to um, have comments, be sure to raise your hand either in the screen or with the icon. Let's keep the chat open for those that use that as their primary means of communication. If you want your comments read out loud, just stick a little read at the very beginning and we'll make sure that we get to that so everyone's represented. If you could keep your self on mute if you're not speaking, that would be helpful to those of us who have some auditory processing challenges. And we're an enthusiastic group. So if you want to jump in and have something to say, again, try to raise your hand. And if you've had one turn engaging, remember lots of people probably have things to say. So leave plenty of room for those people who are a little slower to process and want to be included. Uh, After you have a comment, for example, if you can maybe wait till the discussion period to follow up. If you have follow-up questions, that would be great. We have a beautiful and respectful group of people, so things always go pretty smoothly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Roger, who's going to tell us a little bit more about how he met Thom.
Thanks, Don. So yeah, Thom is joining us from the Heartland in Missouri, which is well known for its cultural associations. For me, like Mark Twain and Kansas City barbecue and jazz, comes to mind. But it's not surprising that Thom is a cultural theorist, a free improvising musician, and a neurodivergent activist and advocate. Uh, he is a constant and serious consumer of art and culture in many forms, leads a free improvising or quote free jazz unquote band called the Mama Lujo Collective, which integrates a wide variety of media, including poetry, mixed media works on canvas. They just finished a year of recording and are looking to release some material this year. They've appeared on stage with some renowned artists, even having performed alongside with Thom's favorite living poet. So Thom is a staunch advocate and activist, lives by the motto, quote, afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted, unquote, especially when speaking out on how dominant socioeconomic systems like capitalism exacerbate the marginalization we see in society, regardless of neurotype. Um, Thom describes himself as a serious cultural autistic. Reached out to me after noticing Casey's broader, less stereotypical, and more compelling representations of neurodivergent people. So we quickly set up a Zoom meeting. We really hit it off, had a great conversation about the topic of today's event, culture, counterculture, neurodivergent people. And after that, we unanimously decided that we got to have him on to talk about this. So just a little note, if I think Thom, I believe you prefer to have questions at the end, unless you have
Yeah,
something
it's
urgent.
not it's not a hard and fast rule. I forget where I'm at whenever I'm talking. So if somebody does say something, be prepared to remind me what I was talking about whenever I get my train back on, because I got that from my mom. My immediate memory gets derailed like that, but it's not like this isn't going to be fascistic. People are welcome to stop the train.
Awesome. Okay, take it away, Thom.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. Hi, hello. Since we intentionally had very little discussion about the format of this arrangement here, I think that it could go anywhere or nowhere. For starters, there were a handful of things that you and I discussed, Roger. Remember, we were talking about if there's any of those things for starters that you recall and that you want me to jump off with, that would be helpful. If not, I'll just
Great. Why don't you go ahead and then give me a little time to prioritize
improvise.
the things in my head. All right. Thank you.
Cool. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So, yeah, my name's Thom Null, born Thomas Null. I was born in a small town, which will remain nameless, in Missouri. Uh, I am a recipient of the cultural heritage of and the cultural burdens of the place in which I was born, like everybody else. And the way that I make art now, as well as the way that I look at the world and go about my day-to-day life, it couldn't be more connected to the way that I was raised and in the place where I was raised. And so while there are people who make the kind of somewhat similar art to what I do, or even think about the world the way that I do all over the world, it seems, which we were discussing previously, that with technology, it's very obvious how many people are out there having similar thoughts and experiences or overlapping thoughts and experiences, and it's very that by itself is we'll talk about it later, but that's reducing the every one of us being on an island sort of thing, and the sort of ionized alienation of people, which is like a human condition thing, but exacerbated greatly by the conditions in which we find ourselves socially and technologically. Um, I uh, thought it was nice that the categories or sorry, the subjects of the KC sessions that I looked at, they seemed like they weren't. I very much liked that they didn't seem like a sort of prefabricated, respectable limits of discussion, and I was obviously allowed to kind of state my own subject that I prefer to talk about or my own position or whatever. So there wasn't any sort of input from really any other person, and the quickness with which I was able to find out about something, reach out about it, and be involved in it was, something that who knows, it could have taken, years any other time. So that's maybe for the better. Um, uh, Most of the stuff about me that was mentioned is it's all true. A lot of that I gave the heads up and said myself. So um, Mama Lujo Collective is a group. The name comes from Finnegan's Wake, the famous last work of James Joyce, the famously unreadable, aggressively un linguistically pleasant text. Uh, and I'm one of those kind of hard-headed people. I like having little challenges and stuff. And one year I wanted to see how many books I could read, and I managed to read like somewhere around 300. And then in I also heard that oh, is somebody raising their hand? Pardon me, raising their hand, or is that a? I want to make sure I'm not talking over somebody raising their hand.
I don't see anyone, Thom.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. Anyway, um, whenever I heard that it was the hardest book in the Western canon, I was like, I'm just a really some part of me is just a really childishly reactive. Whenever I see something that I like, I jump right towards it. And whenever I see something that I think is unjust or that I hate, I immediately strike out at it. And so whenever I heard about Finnegan's Wake, they said that it was unreadable and that 80+% of people quit within the first 3 pages, and that's this, the very first page of the book has a word that's 100 letters long, and it's very it is very conducive to experiment and study, even verbally or linguistically, but it is not designed to be user friendly, I don't think. And there's not a resolvable this, that, or the other thing about it at all. It really it kind of refuses any definition. But I was able to read it along with a series of compendia, online hypertext versions, things that were illuminating, connecting words and ideas. And I had to learn so much stuff that I had no desire to learn about in order to make any sense whatsoever of this book. You know, I had to put in a lot of legwork just to make it to where, I mean, I wasn't trying to make sense of it. Once I got a page in, I was like, there's no way, you know. But it's this starting ground for all of this learning. And the fact that I knew absolutely nothing about the so-called Vikings and their time ruling Ireland. And I had to learn about that, and I had to learn about all these saints and all this stuff, and a lot of, you know, there's selections from like well over 60 languages in that book. And sometimes they'll, you know, for whole chapters, they have puns on the names of rivers and oceans and various bodies of water. I mean, it's a really far out book. And that's why people like Terence McKenna were really into Finnegan's Wake, and all of the really weird ones, even the late Robert Anton Wilson. Um, the the name Mama Lujo, you're welcome to check that out. It was originally one word in the book. It's shown a lot of different ways. Um, it was originally just a name that I gave to the recording studio that me and my friend Kevin were going to be recording at. They needed a name for the recording session, and I had been reading The Wake, and I was that close to finishing it. Now it's long since done. I've read it. I'm reading it a second time. And I also read the other one, Ulysses, the other famously difficult one by James Joyce. And so I got them both done now, and I think I understand a fraction of both of them or whatever. But this I just gave it like somewhat offhandedly as a name for the setup that we did, and I invited a few people along. And in that particular instance, so if you want to talk about geography affecting somebody's cultural world, and you want to do it in a less obvious way than the fact that in my hometown culture is sports and commercials and stuff like that, you know. And so, or the lack of culture, Rudy Giuliani spoke there, if that tells you how low of a place it is in terms of cultural legitimacy. Anyway, I I by pure coincidence, like, I saw online that there was a Facebook event that said, it was intentionally worded in a weird way to get people to come. You know, it was, the words were deliberately manipulated to create the impression that something might be happening this way or that way. And it was a little bit mysterious from the very beginning. It said Yoko Ono, Yop Blanc, Damon Smith at this restaurant in St. Louis, an Irish hamburger bar. And I was like, there is absolutely no way that any of these people, that Yoko Ono is definitely not definitely not coming to this hamburger bar, you know, that has like 12 parking spots. There's no way. And I still went anyway, because I had just learned about Damon Smith, the upright bassist and improviser who's played on every continent, probably including Antarctica, every place, every land, and probably in the air as well. He's played everywhere and continues to do so. I suggest you guys check him out. But whenever I got there, it was basically it was a happening. You know, it was in the traditional sense of the word. You know, a series of multimedia experiences that push up against what is considered normal for a performance. And it was just like, it grabbed me by the throat. It was so like, it was artistically, its presence was so ever expanding, and it grabbed me by the throat. It was like people reading manifestos, and then Damon was taking his huge upright bass and putting it upside down on the ground and playing it with styrofoam and eating gummy animals out of it with a fork and all this stuff. And another great mind, a great thinker and person working in the art world is his longtime girlfriend, Melissa Venator. And she did a cut piece by Yoko Ono, which whenever you've never seen it, it's a very jarring, especially to be in the room with the sociological elements and the suspense, and it was very, very enthralling. And then Jaap Blanc. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that everybody in here hasn't heard of Jaap Blanc. Any hands of anybody who's heard of Jaap Blanc? Thought I saw a hand. I'm not surprised. Very, very. I mean, outside of it's kind of like within a community. So I love subcultures. It's my main interest. It's how I got tricked into becoming a Mormon. I literally go to these, whether it's juggalos, Hare Krishnas, you know, regardless of what the setting is. I go to these subcultural events, and it's always the most fun that I have is with people that are really into something that I'm not a part of. And well, Jaap Blanc within the experimental improvisation world, I mean, he's a major figure. I mean, he does a lot of stuff. He's a multimedia artist. He's a performance artist. It's Jaap Blonk is how to spell that. I'll put it in the chat if anybody cares. Check him out. It was so it shattered my preconceptions of what performance art could be like. At the time, he had this long hair, white hair in front of his face that was cut in this sort of like diabolical Disney Pixar villainess sort of cut. It came right down in the front, this sort of like the Karen haircut of the lady who wants to talk to the manager, you know. And he has this sort of pointy front of head haircut. And he just starts screaming and making these vocal noises with his throat and grabbing his throat and doing all this. I mean, he starts running around the audience. He's like 6 foot something. He's, you know, they breed him that way in the Scandinavian. And he's stomping through the place, making this Frankenstein noise, you know, and it was like, as a secular person, as somebody who spends a lot of time around people that are in cultures and religions, but that's never really had one of my own, that I could call my own, it was like religious, you know. It's like, here I am, people reading manifestos, cutting their clothes off, yelling and screaming and running in circles, eating things out of their instruments. I mean, this is like, it was profoundly, and is profoundly religious from a secular perspective. It was like, I mean, it's almost every single time, practically 100% of the time, it just comes right at you and it just gets a hold of you, and you're discombobulated the whole time, and then it takes a certain amount of time afterward to get your stuff together. And yeah, that show got me involved in this scene here in St. Louis. I'm in West County, which is just outside of St. Louis, in the White Flight area outside of St. Louis. This is where my girlfriend lives, and where I shack up, as I have no means of paying my own way in the world. But I got involved with these guys almost instantly and started going to the shows. And I had been playing instruments for a long time and doing different kinds of art for a long time. And so it wasn't anything strange to me to get involved in that. But the hardest part was the improv. It was always my like thing that I didn't want to do, because I didn't feel like, you know, I felt like I might choke. You know, I mean, whether it was doing reciting lyrics spontaneously or whatever, you know, it's an art form where if it's not free improv, if it's just improv and there's a structure around which you're improvising, you can play in a way that most people recognize as being wrong or worse than someone else. And of course, I'm very lucky that I happen to play in one of the only art forms where a person who has absolutely no formal, what we would call talent, and no, but with a certain desire, often a very strong desire to do a thing, they are received with just as much love and enthusiasm as somebody who is very knowledgeable about music. And that isn't to say that a lot of free improvisers aren't also like the reading sheet music, knowing how to compose types, because a lot of them are. Roscoe Mitchell is one of the greatest musicians who ever lived, and certainly one of the greatest he's still alive, who came out of America. He's Roscoe Mitchell of the Art Ensemble of Chicago and of various other groups. He's a great visual artist as well. One of the great heroes. Got to meet him. You know, he runs the whole gamut. You know, his music runs all the way from incredibly laborious, very musical, involved runs on his instruments like bells and saxophones, to things that are intentionally made to sound rough around the edges, or to sound unpracticed, or to sound unlike the obvious thing, to go against what the obvious thing is. And so diving into the improvising thing was the scariest part for me, but it ended up being not very scary at all, because I happen to exist in an area where the tremendous amount of alienation that the people who live here experience by living here, by being alienated from the place where they live, from many of their neighbors, this intense alienation feeling that it combines with a strong artistic predisposition and a strong artistic dedication by the people who live here. It's one of the ways that a lot of us find to keep going from day to day, regardless of our situation. And so this sort of like dispossessed quality and this island of misfit toys, where people who individually are strange or different than what is considered normal, or whose art form is strange or abnormal, there's nothing about it that comes across as abnormal to these people. And it's like, even the ones that aren't particularly nice, it's like jumping into open arms, because they're glad to hear whatever somebody has to share, about 99+% of the time at least. You know, we have people who come out here whose whole shtick is one thing, and they dedicate themselves to it, you know? And then there's other people who are always trying to do something that's completely different from the last time they played. And yeah, this artistic community, as somebody who has always felt uncomfortable in groups and communities, to be able to feel even remotely comfortable around other people is bizarre for me. You know, I mean, I often feel like my otherness is very obvious from whenever I start talking. And if it's not obvious when I start talking, after I have a couple sentences out of my mouth, I think it's usually pretty obvious that I'm in the other category. And that's always gotten me nothing but guff from people. And so being able to say things that would come across as controversial in the small rural area where I grew up, and being able to just say it and not have to defend it as a, you know, if I say something about the way in which people's jobs are destroying their spirit, or the ways in which, you know, whenever I talk about societal hierarchies and stuff, I'm not talking to people who don't take that for granted. I'm lucky. It's like working in some left-wing circles, not all of them, but in working in some left-wing circles, you get to talk with people who already have some cultural assumptions that they share with you. And talking to people who don't have that is also alienating. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time with different religious groups, you know, visiting with them, going to their services, listening to their stuff, and even joining up in a couple of cases. And talking with people that are culturally conservative, who don't have many or any of the same cultural assumptions that I go into conversations with, is really like talking to somebody from another planet. You know, like whenever I say I'm just gonna get feelers out there based on facial reaction, whenever I say the words "the police," there's one group of people and there's another group of people, right? And being around people whose reaction to hearing "the police" is to kind of smile and chipper up, like, yeah, what did they do? Did they help an old lady across the street? What did they do? Oh, I bet you it was something, you know. And for me to get up to talk in front of a bunch of conservative Latter-day Saints and say, something negative about the police, even on a systemic level or on a personal level, like to talk to people who really aren't starting on that first plateau of agreement with you is so strange. And conversely, it's really nice to be able to talk with people who already take for granted certain things, that take for granted that like whenever I was growing up, there was a lot of hate narratives about homeless people, and there still are, of course. But whenever I was growing up, I heard them, and now I don't listen to those people, so I don't have to. But whenever I was growing up, you hear all of this stuff, and to be able to talk to people who take for granted that people have humanity, that they should be interacted with, that they have anything to offer us, that they have a life that precedes what they're doing right now, like that's a small example of trying to hear what your prevailing culture is saying and try and do some other thing or the opposite of that.
Hey,
So yeah,
Thom,
yes.
I was thinking like we're about a half an hour in, and you mentioned so much great information. There's so much rich detail. I
Sure.
just wanted to just pause for a moment, to
Yeah.
see if anyone had any questions or anyone had something to add to all this richness that Thom just shared with us.
I think there were some comments in the chat. There might have been a question or two.
I'm going to take a look real quick here.
If they're wondering about my shirt, I got this from a resale shop. This is a fly fishing shirt, double-breasted front pockets. It's a 3X.
Okay, looks like
Serious noise.
you got some folks who probably live close to you who are
Hey.
giving you a shout out.
There you go, Carbondale. Yeah, sure, sure. I've had people invite me to come out that way. I guess I'll just have to. Maybe you can feel free to message me. I can put my email in the chat for anybody who needs to get a hold of me, and I'll do that right now. Actually, just get a hold of me, Carbondale, and Mama Lujo will be there. We will arrive. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Let's see here. Looks like here. Yeah, looks.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say we have a comment that wants to be read out loud.
Oh, sorry. Maybe while somebody's looking for their comment, I was just gonna say I have like really similar experience to you, like growing up in like a really small town. So like I actually trained with Russian Olympic dancers, but there were 60 kids in my high school class. Wow. It was like entirely sports centered. People only listened to Fish or music on MTV, and I got like really into punk. But then I came to visit them. I ended up moving here when I was 17, and I've left a few times, but I always come back. There's like here, if you're not weird, it's weird. Unless you're a yuppie, unless you're like a tech yuppie. Anyways, I think you'd like our noise scene if you ever want to.
Yeah.
Send me some links. I put my email there. I'm always looking for stuff to listen to in the shower. That's where I do a lot of my music listening.
I mostly listen to stuff live because I just like it loud, but I can really like send you some really cool musicians that you do.
I'm listening all the
Time, really constantly. Please do. I love that sort of stuff. Well, a lot of my friends are noise people. Yeah.
I think it's her hand up. You want to ask something or say something?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, I'm buried in dogs right now.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm actually an artist, a performance artist, and I have different various music projects. One of which I've been doing recently, where I use biofeedback from plants to create music. But I've also done a lot of really weird performance art. And I think that I wonder if this resonates with you, where as an autistic person, I really found myself in my 20s being a performance artist because it was a way for me to unmask in front of people. and really truly kind of delve into exploring even myself. And I wonder if you've had that experience. And I think a lot of us in these communities are neurodivergent in several ways. And this is kind of like this, it looks very strange from the outside, you know,
Yeah.
but I think it's a way of us supporting each other as we do unmask and we explore our special interests in a safe environment. And I wonder if you had that experience. And I thank you for coming on and sharing your experience because it is very important to have these kinds of outlets. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Somebody else wants to be read before I respond. Ah, okay. It looks like Dawn says you need to specifically do an episode of your own to talk about. I say to come out and do it in St. Louis. Do it out here. We've got places for plants. You know, if we have to do it in a library or something, or at CBGB's out here, you know, it's completely unrelated, by the way. Not like the New York CBGB's. It's the initials of the husband and wife duo that own the place. Apparently, they were unaware of the other CBGB. That's the story. Um, Great. I'd love to know more about what kind of performance art that you do. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel for sure. Um, being able to perform without doing all of the stuff that you need to do to be performative during your daily life is very freeing because just being alive whenever you're autistic and around other people, especially people that are either neutral to confused to hostile about your existence. I feel like it's all performing, right? In order to have people like you have to make certain facial expressions. You have to say things with a certain lilt in your voice, and it's sometimes it's very clear what you need to do. And there are some communities where there's a small if you learn 5 or 6 techniques of how to interact with people, you can get along very well out there. And then there's a lot of other communities that have really subtle social cues that can leave us all very alienated from one another. But I guess the point of what I was getting ready to say just then was that, if everyday life has such a performative aspect whenever you're masking around people, but performing, doing something that you want to do in front of people who actually care, it's a very different, obviously the exact opposite context in many ways than being around people who don't want to hear what you have to say and doing it in a completely in a way that is catered to minimizing negative pushback or harm to yourself from other people. It's I feel exactly that way. I have never felt like I could have ever been able to really, even though I've done live music before this for a number of years. I played like what would you call that? Observational humor music where I would play an acoustic guitar. I don't know how to play guitar, so I'd play 1 or 2 chords and I'd say a bunch of weird blue commentary to very confused crowds in East Central Missouri. That was fun. I played in my underwear. I got beat up a couple of times on stage. And so it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of fun in it. But at the same time, I was playing for people to validate me and to like me in a way that I was kind of directing my activity towards that. And in this case, just by doing whatever I want in the artistic realm around the right people, they're glad to hear anything that I have to say or do. And so it's not, I don't have to, I still want them to like me, or hate me. I want some really strong reactions to what I'm doing. I want people to, I've, this next album, the next thing, it's the first album we're going to release. We haven't released anything so far. I'm gonna send it out to a bunch of like traditional jazz critics and stuff and see if we can get a bunch of like hate mail, if we can get like negative reviews, and we're gonna publish that with the album on Bandcamp. And I'm trying to see if I can if I can send it out to like some of traditional, see if I can send it to some if anybody knows anybody who's a real jerk who does reviews and stuff, seriously send their information my way. Or let me know and I'll give you a URL when it comes out and you can get us our reviews. Yeah. But no, that is wonderful, and that is totally exactly how I feel. That I'm 30 now, but it was like my very late 20s whenever I first met these people. So it's very special and very nice and very freeing. And it's exactly the inverse of masking. You know, it's being able to put on a mask of myself and being able to stand out there and put on a me mask that's like my face, but much bigger than my real face, you know, and I get to wear like what's that, Chris Seavey, the guy who did he was Frank Longbottom. He outsider artist. He performed in a head, in a paper mache head, and I get to metaphorically do that. I do wear a helmet on stage, but I get to metaphorically wear a me helmet. That's nice. This last time that I was playing,
So I just wanted to
Go
say,
ahead.
Thom, that
Go
you
ahead,
do
Harper.
have some videos on YouTube, which
Yeah.
I mean, the words I don't think can really it's hard to express it in words. It is an experience
Yeah.
and I'm sure live is a completely different experience as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all Zen practitioners here, so we believe in the you experience it and then you understand it while it's happening philosophy, you know. So to be a part of it, I love being able to do all this stuff, being able to, you know, run out into the audience and being able to roll around on the ground and being able to scream and, you know, to you know, like just walking down the street a lot of times, especially growing up, there was just it felt kind of heavy somehow, and I felt like there, you know, it still does, but just in a different way. It still feels heavy, only now I feel like I'm not, you know, going at it by myself. I will take this moment to, like I wanted to earlier, give specific credit to some of my current set of collaborators. I'd like to give a shout out to Jeremy Melsha, who plays electronics, Xbox controller, and various horns, including the trombone with Mama Lujo. I'd also like to shout out Jim Z. McGowan, the well-known poet of St. Louis, surrealist poet, who also does circuit bending and various self-invented instruments with our band. He does like the Mad Professor thing where he's just kind of circuit bending and putting stuff together. And I asked him if he could mess up a CD player and get it to where we could do this certain type of thing, and he's been working on it. And we're going to be breaking out the Discman pretty soon, putting different soundtracks on it and engineering CD skipping with our own sounds and with found sounds. You know, he's great, and Danny Pancratz is that's dannypan.bandcamp.com. Danny Pancratz is playing guitar and small instruments adjacent to it with various objects. He's been playing for a very long time. And the co-founder of the group, the person who helped me start Mama Lujo, I'd like to formally give a shout out to Kevin Cayley. That's Kevin, Cheli. His music is available wherever music can be bought and sold. He's a great artist, a great engineer, and a great human being. And I love those guys. And whenever I think about it, I cry. So, but yeah, getting to do that stuff with other people and them getting to do their own thing and just getting to let it happen all at the same time is very special.
I have a comment I'd like to share here.
Sure.
It says, I love art because it captures the complex spiderweb connections of my brain. I can research topics, info dump while I'm teaching and express myself authentically. I can write poetry as an outlet for being hyperverbal. I can stim to music, and it's just improv dancing. And socially, no one really questions my quote weirdness, unquote. Let me scroll down a little bit.
It says
Because
socially nobody questions the weirdness because, oh, they're just an artist.
Yep.
Totally my experience too. Like, oh, you're quirky. My mom used to always call me eccentric. That's how she pronounced it. She would say, no, you're not any of that. You're not any of that. They say that you're disabled and all this and that. No. You're eccentric. I love you, mom. But I feel exactly the same way. Yeah, art is one of the only ways where that seems good. Are you trying to talk? It looks like somebody's trying to talk.
So I teach wonderful little neurodivergent little ones,
And I have kiddos that are very musically inclined, very artistic, and I'm listening to you thinking, how can I get to like talk to my students? Like my students need to know that there are autistic adults out there that do art, and their parents need to know as well, because the schools don't do music and art anymore like they used to. So they need to know and they need to see. So I just want to put it out there. I'm just kind of like thinking about, oh my gosh, how can I get like for my students, because it's important. Okay, that's it. So thank you so much for sharing. This is so exciting. I played the guitar when I was in Girl Scouts, but I think I only played it because I wanted to control the songs we sang at the fire.
Yeah.
That's some self-efficacy. Good.
Yeah. So, but I will say I was very happy, without even telling my children I played the guitar, that my youngest son at 9 said, I want to play the guitar, and he still plays the guitar.
Man,
So,
that's great.
yeah.
That's
So I'm gonna get your email and I'll send you an email.
Do it. I'll do, like, I can, me and the people that I work with, we can appear, we can digitally or in person, we can help out in any way that's possible. I think that the upcoming years are in many ways only going to be much worse. And so I think that finding good things to be able to do that don't constantly feel like we're being squeezed to death will become ever more important in the upcoming years if we don't want to collectively.
I
Which,
just want to
you
read
guys,
a
if we all
comment.
decide that that's what we're going to do, by the way, just seriously, like, I feel like this is a good enough group of people. If we all just decide that it's going to be doing it as like a thing, just email me. It's in the chat. Seriously, get a hold of me.
I just want to read what Don said here. It says, around Casey, we use the term, quote, neuroholographic, unquote. Your creativity definitely celebrates that idea. All connected, nonlinear, interdimensional.
Yeah, I dig it. Let's see here. Said, take them to a show or ask artists to come speak. I've spoken in schools about art and science experiments. Yeah, I don't think they invite open rebellion, overthrow the government people to talk at schools as much as they used to, but they might invite me. There was a comment that got kind of lost in the shuffle. We've got a couple that I'm just catching up here about. There's some statements about somebody in here. It looks like mentioned the noise and avant-garde scene of Columbus, Ohio. Tell me more. My girlfriend's family lives there. We go there. I want to know where it's at. Tell me all about that stuff. I want to know about the avant-garde of Columbus, Ohio, because it's exactly what I was talking about. Me and Roger were talking about this. This is true almost everywhere. If there's a place that's full of fascist soul crushers, it's full of people that are trying to resist that also. Not full of, but there are bound to be those people there. I'm going to turn on a light. I'm starting to get a weird sort of holographic. Actually, I kind of like it. I'll leave it that way. But yeah, I dig that. That's all great. Let me know. I will be out there. Yes. And also, yes, thanks for the props on. He might be might be a right libertarian, which is subhuman, really. But as an artist, man, I tell you, what a mind. I tell you, you can't really separate the art from the artist. I can't, but man, that guy, listen to him talk about Finnegan's Wake. He kind of has this particular way of talking, and to hear him go on and on about the psychedelic book from the 20s and 30s is really great. He's like, it's like a fractal. It's like a fractal. I love it. Let's see here.
So I was just gonna say yeah, I left long ago, but there was a lot of just almost viral art coming out. Every few years, I think a new group came out and said we're going to do street art, street performance. They I just remember being the guy who didn't want to get seen, eating all by myself at the White Castle, and they show up in front of the White Castle in 1980s like exercise gear, exercising, and I'm like, I do feel subtly shamed, But I'm okay with that. I don't exactly know. That it was clearly an art thing. I was like, all right, I get it. I'm part of the story, but there are no video cameras. I'm fine with this. But yeah, and also thank you for all your chat, the talk, because I'm getting into it.
I dig it. I dig it. And had something that they wanted to share. Is there anything that you'd like to say to us?
To tell. I wanted to share a story in terms of a little girl that is 2.5 years old. I work with her mother. Her mother lives. They are, and the mom sent me a video and said she asked me to put away the train tracks, the little Thomas the Train wooden train tracks, because she doesn't play with them the right way and she keeps banging them on the floor. So the mom, who luckily she's been listening to me, she said, I wanted to video and I wanted you to tell me if it was sensory related. I kid you not. I listened to that video and I was like, shut the front door. And then I listened to it again and I'm like, oh my gosh. She's playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars and choosing which track for which tone and changing. And I couldn't wait to talk to the mom and I said, listen, I'm so glad you did not take the train tracks away. Get her a piano right now. Tell dad to go in another room if he can't watch it. But I share the story to say, because I'm, trying to shift the narrative, our children have talent and that is squashed because they're looking for appropriate play. And if this little girl did not have a mom who understood and asked questions, we would have missed out on a future musician. So I just wanted to share that little story because I'm all about music.
Hey, I've got some people out there. I've only been there once in the flesh, but that's a man. There's some stuff happening there in the both in and around. There's a lot of hot stuff happening there. Sorry, what were you gonna say? Muted.
Thank you for listening to my story.
No, I love that story. That's wonderful. It's very spiriting for me. I have very little spirit left some days, so I appreciate it greatly. This is wonderful. There is a lot of outsider art there, like a tremendous amount. It's like a Paris, France of outsider art. Charles Gillum Sr. out in he's a great, amazing artist out there. And when I told somebody that I had been out on that island, apparently he had spent some time there as a youth, and this drunk guy came up and was hugging me. I mean, that tells you how attached people are to that area. People love that stuff. And right outside of it is and the Abita Mystery House with John Preble. And that's amazing stuff too. Don't waste your time at the restaurant in town. It wasn't very good, but the root beer, very good. Abita root beer. I'll put in my plug for that. Waiting for the downfall of capitalism, but I love the root beer. Good stuff.
Go to the Jazz Fest. I'm there every day. Just email me and we can hang.
Yeah, I will do it. Seriously, if you send me the first email, sometimes I have a hard time doing the first, but if you send me the first email, I will stay in contact. I will come there. I will go to the thing. Make no mistake about it. I love that. Yeah. And I love all of that. There's so much cool stuff. There's another Dr. Charles Smith. He gave himself the title of doctor. And I love those people. Damn it, I love those people so much. He is an amazing artist, and he has a space that's on that same highway going down into the same highway that goes through that same spot, right in that same area, not far outside of there. Dr. Charles F. Smith. I'm sorry, my memory sometimes serves me and sometimes doesn't. But he was great, and I got to talk to him on the phone. He's a real character. He's a wonderful man. It's the Black Veterans Archive, the African American Folk Art Museum and Black Veterans Archive, I believe it is. And his entire front yard is all sculptures, and his backyard, and then he's got oh man.
Thom, we have with her hand up, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, hey, thank you for being here. It's been very interesting to listen to you so far. My question was, I apologize because I was doing some chores in between, so you might have mentioned it earlier. I was wondering, like, how did you meet your performance partners and your bandmates? Was it in the music scene or?
Yeah, so yeah, I talked about it indirectly. It wasn't exactly clear,
Oh, okay.
but I did. So here in St. Louis, most people don't know, at least until they saw that Vice documentary that came out, that St. Louis used to have a larger population. It's one of the few large metro areas that has notably shrunk
since
Oh,
the
wow.
50s. And we lost
200,000 people.
Wow.
And most of it was due to white flight. You know, there was the race riots that happened in East St. Louis and all around here, and various other things that were happening.
and
That their inability to completely segregate every aspect of existence from the disabled, the differently abled, and the non-white communities, it has produced this. It's produced a lot of outsider, weird art people. You know, people who make what most people would call weird art, and uh, I went to one particular show. Now it's been technically 3 years ago, but it was 2 years and some change ago. I saw an upright bass player who's now a colleague of mine who I see fairly regularly, Damon Smith, the upright bassist,
and
improviser who plays with a lot of objects and plastic chains and various what have yous. Kind of far out dude on that level, pretty strictly within the modernist avant-garde style, you know, but there's a lot of variation he does. Very talented. He's also done work with, he's played music in Werner Herzog films. Mm, he's got a real resume, but he was putting on a show where a lot of crazy stuff was happening and people were running around and screaming, and I mean, it was like, it was all enthralling. And so I started going to these shows, and I found out that the people in the audiences were just as far out and weird and strange as the people on the stage. And so I was like, man, you guys are all really cool dudes. And I'm like, we've got to have a band. We've got to do this. Like, it coincided in some ways with me beginning to drive
I had my permit.
for like 15 years or something. You know, I never had a car of my own. And so I didn't want to have to pay to be insured or any of that other stuff. And so I never drove. I drove with my permit with other people in the car, and I would renew it every so often. I have many permits with many haircuts.
I'd love to share that.
Again, it's
The emails in the chat.
but I still have all of those. That's a score for autism. I still have all of those IDs. But these guys in the audience, Kevin Cayley, Jeremy Melsha, Jim McGowan, Danny Pancratz, Dave Stone, Michael Williams. There's some really, really wonderful, tremendous artists out here that are doing stuff. There's Zama and who play with us when we play live quite often. They're in a group called Bitch Fit, and there's a lot of stuff going on out here. Not as much as we'd like, you know, because the combination of COVID, and it's still on.
All of the
Physical and economic effects of COVID are still very active in St. Louis. They've ruined a ton of small businesses, and the ones
that are too big to fail.
They still are parasitically attached.
I actually am going to turn on the
light because we officially ran out of light here in Missouri. Give me just one moment. Yeah, but I started going to these shows, and yeah, these guys, these people, because they're people who run the whole identity and gender spectrum. They're really talented people, guys in the colloquial sense, though most of them end up being men because, you know, I guess they're the ones that feel the most need to do it in public. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they need
Attention or something. But yeah, I met them just going to shows and getting involved in the video art scene and going to just any subculture event that I saw happening, I would try and get myself to immediately. And some of the most fun I've had is by doing stuff like that. I ended up following a well-known cult leader and guru to their hotel room one time. And I also was involved at several Hare Krishna events where I pulled the Jagannatha, what would you call it, parade float with my hands for like 3 hours.
Chanting with these people and eating fruit and nuts. And
so I've been in kind of a just throw myself into it and let whatever happens mindset.
I
recognize that there's privilege that goes along with that because I'm 240 pounds and I read as male. And so
I think
that being able to just throw myself into weird
crazy
situations is obviously safer for me maybe than for
everybody. So I recognize that
not everybody can just say, oh, hey, it looks like there's a bunch of really interesting
dangerous people over here. I think I should go park my
car. And
which is totally what I've done a million times.
whenever I saw, I've seen bands that now I've even performed with, like Satan's God, and look him up. There's very little
evidence of his existence, but there's
one video that's the camcorder footage of him from about 30 years ago that made its way to Reddit 10 years ago or 20 years ago, something like that. And it's out there. Him and his fellow bands like Without MF Order, which is a novelty punk band that their main gimmick is that the lead singer lets the audience do whatever they want to him.
So people get a lot of their
frustration out by beating this guy up and throwing stuff at him.
Wow.
And
seeing that happening out there was very electric as well. So just
to know that it's happening
out there, very exciting. And knowing that there are people out there with pewterware dishes that are letting people beat them nearly unconscious, and it's just people that are attached to the world, that are actually being engaged with the world, even as confusing and terrifying and awful as it is right now in
many ways. So I love that.
Well, thank you. I mean, by the way, so I'm a little far, but
Hey, I've got some people out there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, hit me up in the chat.
I know some people out there that are
school teachers that recently moved from. I will leave
their identities to be determined. I'll ask them if they
want me to pass around their info first, but I know
Yeah.
I know a couple people on the borderland as well.
Cool, thank you.
Comments in here. You're very welcome.
It looks like, oh, here we go. We've got a comment that says there's a growing number of trans female alt indie musicians on the rise. Oh, Ethel Kane, yeah, sure. That's a good. Feel free to comment more examples. I'm looking for, as well as email me. Please, I'll put it in the chat again, and if you need me to. But if you have any other, if you want to even sub comment as a reply underneath your original comment, go ahead and do so, and I will hopefully write them into my phone and not lose them in the traditional autistic manner. I will open a tab and I will keep it open for the rest of my life. This tab will stay open until I am 10 years dead in the ground. I have to go through and prune my tabs, because if they get over several hundred, I'm digging for this particular weird pedantic thing, and I can't find it. I'm like, I know that I have this particular universal access to information, and yet practically no ability to actually grab a hold of it. 100 gex, there's St. Louis. They've hit their day. Will Wood, my stepson, my girlfriend's son, is into him. He's weird music. I dig it. 100 gex, there's St. Louis Originals. I got to see them live. People were very excited. People were jumping around, headbutting each other. It's good to see more dystopian stuff coming out of my home area, my home geographical region. It's great. It's great. It means that they're actually looking around. Yeah. Does anybody have anything else they want to say before we continue, or before Roger says anything else, before you keep it on to the next thing?
I'm wondering if you like hip hop before I send you some suggestions in this email I'm writing you.
Yeah. I mean,
I prefer the stuff that's a little far out.
But it's all indigenous.
Yeah, I love it.
Send it by email.
I'll add that.
Because I'm less likely to lose it.
I'm sending you some of my noise friends, and then I'll send you that too.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I like all that sort of stuff. I have in fact briefly met a number of well-known hip hop heroes. I have met the Souls of Mischief and Ghostface Killah and a number of other well-known and lesser known people in the hip hop community. Looking forward to those recommendations. Loving it. Anybody else? Hey, Boots Riley. That's exciting. Anybody who hasn't seen that movie, it's disturbing, but the movie Sorry to Bother You. It was made by Boots Riley, the communist hip hop singer and producer. And
Hey, Thom, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind maybe commenting on
the subject at hand.
well, no, it's more like, I mean, it's all you're talking about the subject. What I'm trying to figure out is like how you see the contribution of neurodivergent people's role in cultural development.
Yeah.
And because there's so many, as you're saying, there's so much diversity, and the dynamics between sort of the neuronormal, typical, and neurodivergent folks. I mean, there's a very there's a lot of inequality there, so all these forces coming together, and how do we try to understand that?
Sure. As for understanding, I rely on everybody collectively to do the job of that. I can only think so much before I get really sad and I have to eat something and go to bed. But having said that, I so if it wasn't for neurodivergent people, so I'll go ahead and say I'm using a little bit of hyperbole here. I usually use hyperbole all the time, literally all the time. See, I did it right there. That's an example. Me using hyperbole. I use it a lot. I say things like the worst of all time a lot. So I mean, I'm well known to be that way and to say things a little bigger than maybe might be representative. Um, and uh, and so I will just jump scare alert warning. I will tell you there's a little bit of hyperbole coming up, and you can don't at me in the comments and don't alert the neurotypical people on me. Don't call the neurocops on me. Um, I think that without neurodivergent people, we would be living in a type of empty land that buggers description, and that we already live in a culturally, like in a world that is culturally always being pulled back by reactionary forces. And without going to the edge of my knowledge and looking like a dum-dum, I will say that there is and has always been a interplay. It's dialectical. If you guys are into dialectics, don't know if you guys know what dialectics are, but if you think about things dialectically, it's a big word. You can throw it around a lot at parties, and people don't question it because they don't know what it means either. But if you think about it in terms of the dialectics and the various balancing, struggling for contending forces, to use maybe a Marxist terminology, the contending forces in any cultural development as we would have it is there are the people, the masses of people, the unwashed masses, the majority, the 99%, the whatever. And then more specifically, there are the culturally dispossessed people who, even within that group of poor schmucks, like me and everybody I've ever known, even among that pile of schmucks, we're still totally othered by even the other people that are being trod by cultural hegemony and cultural unification and capitalist destruction of originality. Look at the design of cars over the last few years. You tell me how many boring white, black, and gray cars there are that look identical, and I'll tell you a thing or two about how capitalism supports development and new thinking. And yeah, what a joke. Anyway, so there are retrograde forces that are constantly trying to prevent culture from expanding its definition of what is acceptable, of what we're going to all share in listening to. And then, and this is, there's a lot of great examples that are informative in different ways. One example that comes to mind is Tiny Tim. Most people don't know he was a right-wing reactionary and a real jerk in many ways, very pro-Nixon, pretty awful, and died a bloated old bag. But having said that, his cultural size is massive. The guy is like, I love that stuff. He was on his song, several of his songs, two of his songs were on SpongeBob SquarePants when I was growing up, and that got me started on stuff like Tiny Tim there. But in his example, he's an example, and maybe a little bit less now than back then, even because there's a time whenever the search for novelty was pushing up against the desire of the dominant cultural hegemonic forces to keep things the same or pull them back, which is always happening. It's why square dance and line dancing are the official state dances of so many states. It was an intentional right-wing psyop to block out jazz dancing and other non-white forms of dancing and replace them with a culturally uniform white dance that was directly related to even Irish and English dances. So even you couldn't even say that they owed anything to non-white people. It was an intentional racial hegemony trying to enforce a unified national identity through its product, through the things that people buy. Anybody who has read any Marx knows a thing or two about the way that productive forces affect social production, and reproduction, whatever the heck that means. In the chat, anybody who knows what social reproduction of culture means? I don't know. Anybody? It's in the chat. My email's in the chat. Hit me up in the chat. There's this really strong pull this way and that way, and at different times that balance of that's the word I was looking for, was reification. Thank you. I still don't know exactly how to use it properly in a sentence, but that is the word I was looking for. Thank you very much. Very, very appreciated. Thank you. If you take different examples right now, 10 years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you can see that at any given time, the balance of wanting novelty and wanting something new is checked by that dragging force pulling us back. And neurodivergent people and non-white people and neurodivergent non-white people have always been the center of that struggle. A lot of the great heroes of many cultural movements were either different in an unspecified way or who were neurodivergent in a very well-known way. And whether their music is ever heard by the majority or even a large minority of people, not very often. But the greater impact, the rippling effect of non-standard people, many of whom or most of whom are neurodivergent in some way or another, it has rippling effects that go way further than just a small handful of enthusiasts of silly, ridiculous honking around. And which I also am one. I love that sort of stuff. I love silly, ridiculous honking around. That's why I love free jazz. So I mean, it's one of my favorite art forms. So I'm into that. But the avant-garde, the counterculture, as the title of this program suggests, is dialectically and spiritually and directly connected to the larger culture. Sometimes it's by virtue of being made fun of, and other times it's by virtue of being allowed in as a museum exhibit. And then there's other, like Tiny Tim was the example I was starting to use. There was a large percentage of people in the audience who were laughing at him, not with him, and who didn't necessarily like the way that he sang, but they enjoyed the schadenfreude of watching him humiliate himself and watching this neurodivergent person, for sure, humiliate himself and look silly in front of, and all of the neurotypical people in the audience of these old 1960s and 70s, they have their martinis, they're smoking, beating their wife. They're out there, oh, look at the freak, honey. Oh, look at him. He's got funny hair. Oh, his voice is funny too. You know, there was enough of that. The balance was pushed towards, you know, we could have enough weird people out there, and at different times they're allowed in for various reasons, to reinforce the culture, to push the culture forward, to just be laughed at. But we're brought out every so often, and at different levels of society, our artistic and cultural presence is. And you know, there are neurodivergent people who love popular culture and who are major consumers of pop culture objects and consumers of albums and movies and other things. You know, they also have a very large portion of the directing of culture. I mean, there are so many neurodivergent people on social media, and especially in the performative parts of social media, either doing stuff talking about being autistic, neurodivergent, or just being autistic or neurodivergent and being out there and people liking them. And there are so many of them out there that it's this is an example where even if everybody only gets their 8 minutes of fame, not even 15, if everybody gets their 7 or 8 minutes of fame, these people are out there being major parts of the community. There are, you know, I'm not going to go through and name drop a bunch of people who are both diagnosed and non-diagnosed neurodivergent and autistic people, but if you take a look around at the creatives in the world and see how many of them are neurotypical and who possess all of the self-described qualities as well as visible qualities, you might call them, of either assimilation to neurotypicality or being neurotypical, then you will see that the number of people that are neurodivergent that are moving culture forward in every single category, every category of music, every category of comedy, there's not, historically and currently, in politics too, there are, you know, like, to say that it almost makes it sound small to just mention a couple, but you know, there are people out there, there are well-known cultural theorists that are autistic, that are majorly influencing not just academic journals that are read by a bunch of pencil neck dweebs who nobody cares about. And let's just be straightforward. That's no offense to you in the academics, but you know, that is the ultimate niche sub community that you have to pay a bunch of money to be a part of, is the academic community. Like, yeah, I really have to spend 10, 12, 15, 20 years of my life to be able to get access to this discussion about whether or not snails can trip on LSD or something. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, you know, once it moves out of the academic circles and into the wider culture, sometimes it's by laughing at it, and sometimes that laughing then turns into something else. John Cage was neurodivergent, and he appeared on public television a number of times. He was on I've Got a Secret. He was on the most popular game show of the time. There are plenty of people that I could go on through a whole list, you know, Greta Thunberg and all those other people. There are self-described, and let's just be honest, we all know, neurodivergent people that are out there on almost every level of the world who are doing the pulling this way and who are also part of the pull going this way. I mean, I don't think that it's any, I love some stuff that's incredibly basic and that is designed to appeal to normal and neurotypical people. Like there are like some pop music, it's designed and redesigned to try and be as acceptable to the widest variety. You know, we've all read Theodore Adorno in here. I don't need to tell you guys, Antonio Gramsci, cultural hegemony. It's in the chat. Check me out in the chat. But you know, there's a large role for neurodivergent people on both sides of that, because I love a small. I mean, whenever I was younger, especially, I would refuse to go and watch or read or listen to anything that was really popular. I'm still kind of that way. But now I'll go and see a popular Indian film, and I realize that I don't have to be culturally in whatever anyway in order to avoid going and being with something popular. RRR is one of the best-selling movies of all time, and it was also great. Go check it out. I will post that in the chat. Yeah, indeed. I'm getting some very straightforward and good comments here in the. But anyway, yeah, I think that you know, we're out there. There's plenty of people. I like Pink Pony Club. I dance in my kitchen. I like that stuff. You know, I'm not the customer for it because I'm not giving them my money, and I'm not even usually watching the ads that they show me. So I'm not really giving them anything per se, aside from maybe some of my time. But you know, I mean, we're pulling on also. It's not like all neurodivergent people are all in an allegiance to move society forward. There are plenty of autistic people among the people who want to make society all one way. There's definitely plenty of people out there that are neurodivergent who are attracted to these simplistic ideas of make it the way it used to be, and you know, they're out there. I've met people who I definitely know were not neurotypical, and also people who spend all their day and waking hours posting about how much they hate this and that political figure. How many of those people are neurotypical? I mean, really, most of them don't self-identify that way, and they're not doing anything good for them by electing fascists into office of whatever party and allegiance, you know. But they're for sure, absolutely, Elon Musk, absolutely. Yeah, I think that yeah, I don't I recognize that for a long time I used neurodivergent supremacy language, like autistic supremacy, and I still do a lot of the time for the purpose of making my point. I say, you know, I think that neurotypical people, if they work really hard, eventually can reach where what we do every day of our lives, and you know, whatever, and you know that we're gifted and touched or whatever. But I recognize that that sort of supremacy language has its roots in eugenics, so I don't do it anymore as much. I can have a little bit of hyperbole as a treat, but um, yeah, I definitely think that uh, almost every neurodivergent person I know who's involved in doing anything is so much more interesting and so much more willing to share what they have going on. You know, I don't know. It's a huge disparity. And yeah, anybody who goes to a noise show and is wondering, are the people in this room neurotypical? The answer, probably no. The answer is they're probably not. And they probably don't have a diagnosis because a lot of them are poor or their parents refuse to get them diagnosed for whatever reason, good or bad.
I think those are some really great examples. I mean, it even sounds like, and initially I was thinking like, you know, the yin and the yang, you know, you've got
Right.
two polar opposites, but it's not, it's a lot more complex than that. You know, you've got maybe sort of the neuronormative typical society,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not that all neurodivergent pull the same way. You know, they
Right.
pull in different ways, some of which are probably aligned with typical ways, you know,
Yeah.
but I guess people don't really, I guess people, sounds like people do like novelty, and a lot of times
That's
they
how they
don't
sneak
know.
us in. That's how they sneak us in. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like they don't know what they like until they experience and see it,
Right.
you know,
And make
and
it and
then
yeah. And they
yeah,
can't make it happen by themselves.
right, because you know what you don't know. Like, I mean, it reminds me of you know, the examples that you gave, you know, and I'm wondering like if things like I mean, we're seeing a lot of stuff in the more of the pulp culture these days with, you know, certain TV series portraying uh neurodivergent individuals.
Yeah.
And I think one of the really popular ones, no one really, it's not disclosed explicitly that the
Mhm.
person's on the spectrum, right? But people just sort of assume it, and they really gravitate towards it and they really like it, you know. So then I could see that as kind of an example of what you're saying, is that, you know, people, when you said some people are let in, you know, for like say in entertainment industry, you know, and their ways of being and ideas, you know, really resonate with a lot of people. And then it becomes sort of folded into more of the popular culture.
Yeah, sorry, I want to comment. Somebody, we have a red comment that got steamrolled, and I'm trying to see which one it is for sure. I'm just double checking, make sure we're not stepping on anybody. I talk constantly and I steamroll over people all the time. My girlfriend, everybody. I just keep going and going and going, and eventually somebody just tells me there's only so much you have to say about this obscure 1990s cartoon. You've got to stop eventually. My God. But I can't. All right, not that I can't. I just don't. Sometimes I can't. As you discussed, yeah. Somebody mentioned the Zapatistas. I'm wearing a Zapatista hat, so obviously I'm familiar with that. That's in the chat. I dig it. Anybody who
I didn't even notice that. I'm obsessed with that.
Yeah, if you want to go check
Oh
it
my
out,
God.
schools for Chiapas.
I went there with them for the 10-year anniversary of the revolution. I'm friends with Peter.
Wow. That's great.
Every year I buy myself Christmas gifts from their web store.
Man, schools for Chiapas.
Chiapas.org. Everybody in
Here, I'll
Oh,
type
yeah.
a comment here for
Awesome.
everybody who isn't learned. But
And then also,
you can get artisanal.
artisanal gifts, coffee, corn, hand sewn.
their coffee is the
I'm
best
a communist. I'm shilling for a bunch of people, but it's a.
The cottage industry of very, very militarily surrounded and intensely.
Have you been down there?
I have not. They invite me. They
It was pretty
Vaguely
chill
invited.
while I
I
was
wasn't
down
given
there.
an informal invitation.
It was great being there for the anniversary of the revolution. I wanted to go to the 20th too, but a lot of other people talking again.
I just, me personally, I'm so touchy about my, oh no, I typed that to not the main comment here. Sorry, let me do to the chat in general here. Let me see if this is here. Anyway, but yeah, schools for Chiapas, CHIAPAS. That is where you can get some great gifts, handmade and hand embroidered down there in the southernmost and most marginalized of the parts of Mexico. So throw that out there.
Coffee's the best in the world you had.
I frankly, I have to take your word for it.
They hand select every bean.
I have an incredibly strong addictive personality, so I have to keep the number of things that I put in
My body low,
even if I can't afford it now. It's just I know how I'm my father's son. I need to be
careful about that. So
yeah, I just want to make sure that I didn't forget there's several oh yeah, right, the Kropotkin comment. I dig it. I dig it. Okay, so there's that.
Great. While you're reading, Thom, I
Yeah.
think I'm just going to say that I think we're going over time quite a bit, so we have maybe about 5 minutes left. So we also like to do a pause towards the end to see if someone hasn't gotten a chance to say something that they wanted to say. I know it moves pretty quickly. We usually save the last few minutes to make sure we're not leaving anyone out.
Yeah, go ahead, everybody. Say whatever needs to be said, and let's leave some room. It's got to be very meditative to be hearing silence after listening to me go on for that long. I agree. It's very helpful. I appreciate it. I'm gonna can for some reason my messaging is going to, okay, this is the group chat now. I'm sending my email one more time for everybody who wants to get a hold of me or send me a thing or tell me about some weird person that eats broken glass or something or whatever. I mean, I already know him. By the way, he doesn't eat the glass. He just kind of puts his mouth on it. He came to St. Louis not that long ago, so I know about him. But you can tell me anyway.
I just want to jump in here at the last. Oh, sorry. Something. Go ahead and read that.
We have a read. Does anyone have any nonverbal commentary or responses to share movement, sounds, etc.? Yeah, let's leave it open. You can, in whatever order you want to do. Whoever was just talking can finish what they're saying, or we can leave it open for if anybody has input besides words.
I have words, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, actually, the last person who was talking, do you want to
Say something.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No. Does the person who was about to speak, do they have anything they want to say before you? Sorry, I just want to make sure nobody gets steamrolled. Who who was trying to jump in a few minutes ago? We were leaving room for if anybody had any nonverbal additions to the conversation. And also, after everybody has whatever they have to say at the end, we didn't hear anything particularly from Dawn. If you have anything that you'd like to say, you're more than welcome. I take up a lot of room in conversations, so any of the people who are about to speak, go ahead and speak. I'm not overtime. I can stay for as long as it takes, and I'm not. I have nowhere to be, so I could wait all night.
Well, hopefully I'm not interrupting anyone. I'm happy to leave the floor if there's someone coming up. But I just wanted to say, oh my God, how I love our community. Thom, brilliant. Oh my God, this was amazing. This is the energy of our culture, and it just fills my heart with joy when these synergies happen. Can't thank you enough. Can't thank you enough. I'll let anyone else who wants to go ahead, and then Roger can close out the meeting, but just wanted to say thank you.
I just wanted to mention if people still want to talk, but you guys have to go, you can just change who's the host, and it'll stop recording too. I used to do that when I was teaching because
That's
you
true.
have to go out.
That's true.
We can regrettably but
pragmatically
end the recording and have the informal whatever anybody wants to do. But yeah, let's leave it open for a few minutes and let's see if anybody has anything to show, say, reflect, move, interpretive dance, wiggle, or whatever the preferred manner. I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to take my video off actually for a minute and open the floor up.
I was wondering if I could go ahead if no one else is next.
Sure, go ahead.
I was just curious, what age you are, age group. It's up to you if you want to be specific or not. I was just curious.
You're on mute, Thom.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Good. I am 30. I was
okay, cool.
born in 1994. I share a birthday with.
Oh, nice, cool. I'm almost in my.
Yeah, I would be interested to see what how much social, geographic, and intellectual diversity we have in here. If I could
Know everything about everybody.
I feel like I would be really stunned by the variety of
Input out here.
In my birthday, actually. So I'm a Pisces. I guess you're Aquarius.
I have just barely made it in.
yeah, and a lot of the stereotypes are true.
I'm not a
participator in those sorts of communities, but yeah, whatever they say about Aquarius is usually true about me too.
I think we tend to be artistic. Yeah, Pisces and Aquarius.
overly dramatic.
I've heard that, and I think that's true. I'm one of those people, man. I don't have to make every conversation a big dramatic thing, but I also do.
And we're dreamers.
We'll start talking about this
one-hit wonder, this person who had like a hit in the 80s, and all of a sudden I'm like, you see, and this represents exactly what I'm talking about. You see, if it's a group led by a woman at that time and place, see, and they weren't saying what everybody wanted to hear, I go into this huge long dissertation. I'm one of those people.
and I think we're dreamers too. So
Famously.
yeah.
Yeah, most of my
Dreams are dead now, but I am definitely
still
Oh,
a dreamer,
as a general way of being. I think
but
I'm still lucid and dreaming.
cool.
appreciate everybody dropping their
Information in la chat, and I mean the chat, and also the emoji of a cat in there. Good on you. It's in the chat. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it open. Anybody else who wants to say anything, you're welcome to do so.
Okay, I'm going to close it out here if no one has anything else to say. Actually, there's a couple read comments that I think are great. Thank you. A most marvelous, anarchic, delightful gluttony of autistic glee. I look forward to more from you. And let's see here, what else I can say here. Really vibing with the black cat.
Yeah, the cat that climbed on my shoulders was showing its rear end, which is very much in character with it as a general.
No meeting is truly complete without a cat. All right, I think that's a shared sentiment of
Yeah.
a lot of folks here.
Also, I think, sorry, there was one person who I cut off who was trying to talk. Can we specifically, there was one person earlier? Yeah.
That was probably me, but let me just say I really like your style and your carefulness about making sure people have the opportunity to speak, that respectfulness. But I need not speak now. Thank you.
I appreciate the
sentiment.
Yeah,
I'm both
ways. I'm both really sensitive about that, and also I have a tendency to still be overblowing all the
time.
It's like all my favorite saxophone players, they'll keep going and the band stops and they just keep going and the band stops and they still stay stopped and they just keep blowing. I'm the same way once I get riffing with some good neurodivergent people. So I feel that way about all of you guys.
It's so much fun to get wrapped up in flow, and it's also so feels so good to find the magic point of balance where you have all the beauty and none of the unnecessary harms or trampling on people.
That's exactly, I couldn't have said it any better myself.
Actually, that was pretty much what I was going to say before. I could picture the freedom of sort of the anything goes stuff that you described, but then at certain moments, I felt pain, and as like talking about the dude who lets his audience beat him up. I shouldn't have kept talking. I should have left it like a few sentences ago. Thank you so much.
Oh, no.
Thank you very much for saying what you said. And I understand why I did get to talk to that guy outside of the context of the show. And it seems like he has a therapeutic need, and it's the type of contact that he needs, and it's the way in which he feels. I mean, it seems like he doesn't seem super poorly adjusted or maladjusted than any other person from Missouri or from the greater St. Louis area. Like, we're all maladjusted. I mean, the people who live in the city, hearing, having to deal with, every sort of crazy scenario, people walking in costume down the sidewalks, people being shot all the time. I mean, there's such a variety of experience in places like St. Louis for all along the spectrum, from the best experiences to the worst. And yeah, the guy seemed like he was relatively, I don't know. I didn't really probe into what his neurotypicality or whatever. I didn't really probe into that with him, but he just seemed like a guy with a wife who just he was a bearded middle-aged guy, late 40s maybe. And his thing was like, they've been doing it for like 30 years. So originally it wasn't some middle-aged guy doing it. It was some young guy going out and provoking the stuff. And there's a long cultural history of that, of this confrontation art. And I won't drag it all the way out through that, but I have done quite a bit of studying about these different people who, whether they deserve to necessarily be centered in this particular discussion or not, I think that a lot of that stuff comes from the traditions that are most dramatically represented in the character of Gigi Allen and other people who specifically went out of their way to get people in the audience to throw them around, hit them, interact with them, give them drugs and food. That was like, it is just another mode of interaction, and I don't think that he thinks it's sad. I think that he's having a good time when it's happening. I think that, especially, like, I saw some people that he was shirtless and people were throwing ice cubes towards him and he was kind of laughing, and and then he had a slip and slide covered in, like, I don't know, some kind of oil or water. And he's a larger guy like me. Okay, he was probably bigger than me, even, maybe 260, 270, I don't know. And he goes running at this slip and slide, and at the end of it is a bunch of fake bowling pins, and he just smashes through these bowling pins while the band is playing in the background. And oh man, he was having a lot of fun. And people, even people who seem to be doing something that seems ridiculous, there's a lot of people that are actually having a lot of fun. Even whenever I'm rolling around on the ground and screaming, that's some of my favorite stuff to do on stage.
Is to just let it all out.
And that's I sometimes whenever I look like I'm really suffering, I am enthralled with how happy I am. It's some of the happiest I've ever been, actually. And being out at CBGB's, I was playing with Dave Stone, the great saxophone player, and Danny Pancratz and the guys from Acid 87, which is a noise band in St. Louis and the greater in Missouri. We were playing this big set at the end, and everybody was playing collaboratively. And my drummer, Kevin Cayley, the great producer and multi-instrumentalist and person, we were all, we were playing, and they asked me if I wanted to play, and I carry some of my instruments with me everywhere I go. And my favorite thing to do is, by the way, is I keep my alto Baroque recorder in the car. And then whenever I'm at a red light, I pull out and I'm just like, I just go crazy at red lights. And some people, I brought it in there along with a couple other things, and man, I was running around outside on the sidewalk and playing, and then I was running up and bashing my head against the front glass and playing. I'm standing on picnic tables and playing, and I come back into the place. I take a deep breath because there's a bunch of people in there and I'm not trying to catch COVID. So I take a deep breath and I'm walking through there back towards where everybody's at in the bandstand. And I stand up on this chair and I'm playing two flutes at once, the alto recorder and another one. And I'm just playing as hard as I possibly can. I'm blowing as much air as I can. I've already been on the ground, going for like 10 whole minutes. And I stand up on this chair and we keep raising it higher and higher. We kept seeing how much higher the notes we could play. And we got until we reached the absolute pinnacle. And then whenever it was all over, one of the guys was like, after we'd been going for God knows how long, the guy's like, shut up. And I'm like, doo-doo-boop. And that was the end of it. So much like that, I think we're just going to have
ecstatic
here. Otherwise, everybody's going to jump. Everybody's going to keep going. So we can formally end this now here. And thank you guys for being involved in this back and forth with me. It's a very, very spiritually enlarging, and it takes the place of, oh, sorry, we have one more read comment. Sorry, not trying to miss anybody. Farewell to you all as well. Thank you, guys. The read comment was, I love your description of St. Louis. Sounds so much like my long lost neuro-anarchic expression of collective existence you tell tales of. It's absolutely true. I'll end it with this. The great free improvising musician, a hero to many, his name was Ra Kalam Bob Moses. Still plays, still alive. Clifford Kaufman's making a movie about him right now. He says that when we play in this way, it's an opportunity for sonic unity. And he played with Rahsaan Roland Kirk, the greatest who ever lived. So if he said it, I believe it. So there you go.
Well, that's wonderful, Thom. I'm so glad that actually I'm very thrilled you mentioned the different perspective of how what appears that someone might appear painful, that's not necessarily that person's experience, that we sort of, and I guess that's part of being sort of neurodivergent, is that we all sort of experience differently, but you know what? I'm thinking we should have you back just to talk about music.
Yeah, let's have a music chat.
I mean,
Love a music chat. I will talk about it for hours with anybody.
there is so much. I mean, I know this is probably one of our.
We'll start with Rahsaan Roland Kirk, my greatest hero of all time. If you guys, this is the last thing I'm gonna put in the chat right here, just so that we know where to start next time, is this guy's name. His name is Rahsaan Roland Kirk. Blind since birth, or blind practically his whole life, if not his whole life. Played 3 saxophones and a nose flute at the same time. The greatest multi-instrumentalist who ever lived. Check him out. There's plenty of stuff available for him, and he played with Rock Bob Moses. That's why I brought him up. So we'll start with that whenever we have our music conversation.
We're gonna have a music fact fest or experience.
Yeah, we'll
fest.
do music and neurodivergence, and just us having an info dump will be the whole time.
That's awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Thom. Have a great evening, and I thank everybody for joining us, and especially I know we've gone quite over time, and we've still got a lot of people joining, so that says something. Have a good night, everyone.